When I stumbled upon this information, a cold dread washed over me, leaving my heart pounded with a single terrifying question. What would a full-scale nuclear war actually look like in our modern world? We've witnessed a horror before. The atomic bombs that fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II showed us the unthinkable. But here's what keeps me awake at night. Today's nuclear weapons are 3,000 times more devastating than those primitive bombs. Could this technology truly bring about the extinction of our entire species? Let me put this in perspective. Between 1939 and 1945, approximately 1,000 human beings were dying every single hour. Yet, paradoxically, by every statistical measure, we're currently living through the most peaceful era in all of human history. Still, a dark shadow has loomed over civilization since 1945, the specter of nuclear annihilation. I need to show you exactly how catastrophic this could become, and together we'll examine whether humanity truly stands on the precipice of nuclear warfare. To truly understand this threat, I embarked on a journey halfway across the globe to where this nightmare first became reality, to the place where the first nuclear weapon was ever unleashed upon human beings, Hiroshima, Japan. I'm standing here in Hiroshima, Japan, one of only 2 locations on our entire planet where humanity has directly experienced the devastating power of splitting the atom. Walking through these streets, I couldn't shake a haunting thought. If this is a level of destruction caused by a bomb dropped 8 decades ago, what devastation would follow if one of today's nuclear weapons detonated here? That's precisely the question we're going to explore together. In 1947, Albert Einstein, Robert Oppenheimer, and several key scientists who had created the first atomic weapon established the doomsday clock, a symbolic countdown to nuclear apocalypse. When this clock reaches midnight, it's over for all of us. Every year, the clock is adjusted to reflect how close the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists believes we are to total annihilation. In 1947, they set it at 7 minutes to midnight. As the arms race accelerated and both the United States and Russia frantically constructed increasingly massive nuclear arsenals, we inched ever closer to that final hour. By 1963, international tensions had eased somewhat, and treaties were signed to limit nuclear testing. Hope flickered. The clock moved back to 12 minutes before midnight. But slowly, inexorably, things deteriorated again. Nations developed bigger, more powerful bombs. Military technology advanced at a frightening pace. Tensions escalated. And now, here we are today, 90 seconds to midnight, closer to nuclear catastrophe than at any point in human history, even closer than during the height of the Cold War. For the first time in decades, nuclear threats are casually leaving the lips of world leaders. It's no wonder that people across the globe genuinely believe we could be approaching nuclear war. If you've seen Oppenheimer, you understand that the effects of an atomic bomb are absolutely catastrophic. But here's what many people don't realize. The bombs the United States use in Japan are primitive toys compared to the thermonuclear weapons deployed today. The fundamental difference lies in where these weapons derive their explosive energy. Atomic bombs function by splitting heavier atoms into smaller atomic nuclei, a process called fission. This releases an enormous amount of energy. Thermonuclear weapons, however, operate through fusion, combining 2 lighter atomic nuclei into a heavier one. This is the same process that powers our sun. You're literally weaponizing the energy of stars. A Los Alamos nuclear weapons engineer who worked on the original atomic bomb put it this way. The original atomic bombs were like elementary school science projects compared to the hydrogen bombs of today. Consider the Tsar Bomba, the largest thermonuclear weapon ever detonated. It was 3,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And that monstrous weapon was tested back in 1961. The nuclear arsenal today is even more advanced and lethal. But how did we arrive at this terrifying reality? The year 1945 marked the beginning of a nuclear arms race, with the United States and Russia competing to see who could amass the most nuclear weapons. It didn't take long for other nations to join this deadly competition. Britain, France, China, Israel, even South Africa maintained a nuclear program for a brief period. This escalation culminated in 1986, when global nuclear stockpiles reached their peak. More than 70,000 nuclear warheads existed on Earth. The United States possessed 23,000 of them. Russia held 40,000. Several hundred more were scattered among other nuclear powers. As international tensions gradually cooled and treaties were signed, the number of nuclear warheads slowly decreased. Fast forward to today. The United States maintains 3,708 nuclear warheads. Russia possesses 4,489. Britain has 225. France holds 290. Israel has 90. Pakistan maintains 170. India possesses 164. China has 410. And North Korea claims 30. You may have noticed this video has no sponsor, and that's partially because the subject matter we're discussing is genuinely serious. But producing videos like this, where I travel all the way to Japan and spend months conducting research, isn't exactly inexpensive. That's why I'm thrilled to announce the launch of the Astrum Kobe Patreon. I've been working behind the scenes for the past 6 months, preparing everything to ensure this Patreon delivers maximum value to you. My favorite part? It's actually free to join the Planet tier and become part of our community. You'll gain access to behind-the-scenes photos and videos from all our productions, plus the ability to vote in community polls about upcoming video topics. All completely free. If you choose to join one of our paid tiers starting at just $5, you'll unlock a whole range of incredible perks. All our YouTube videos ad-free and posted 24 hours early. Access to discussion posts where you can pitch your video ideas. 10% discount codes and early access to future merchandise drops. The ability to join community chat and message me directly with any questions. And even your name featured in the description of my YouTube videos. The benefits go on and on. I have ambitious plans this year to travel across the globe, from Europe to the United States, and even to the remote deserts of Chile, all to create the best educational content possible for you. This Patreon will help make that happen. Head over to patreon.com/AstrumKobe, or simply click the link at the top of the description. At the very least, you can join our community completely free. I've already started a Q&A session there that everyone can access, and I'll be personally answering every single question. So if you've ever wanted to ask me anything, sign up today at no cost. Now, let's dive deeper into nuclear weapons. There are 3 primary methods for deploying massive nuclear warheads, the kind capable of obliterating entire cities. The most obvious is the classic bomber drop. Bomber aircraft fly over a target and simply release the thermonuclear device before retreating to a safe distance. This is how the atomic bombs were delivered during World War II. ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, are an entirely different beast, and to me, unbelievably terrifying. These missiles have ranges exceeding 5,500 kilometers. They launch from their host silos, arc across the ocean to a different continent, and strike their target. All of this happens from the press of a button to detonation within 30 minutes. In fact, these missiles don't even carry just one warhead. Many contain multiple nuclear weapons attached to the end, meaning they can launch a single missile, send it across an ocean, and devastate multiple locations simultaneously. Finally, we have SLBMs, submarine-launched ballistic missiles. These nuclear-capable missiles are launched from the silos of submarines, burst out of the ocean into space, use celestial navigation to orient themselves, then plummet back to Earth before detonating. They can strike their target within 10 minutes. Think about that for a moment. Both ICBMs and SLBMs cannot be recalled once launched. There's no abort button, no last-minute change of heart. 80 years ago, in a desperate attempt to end the war, the United States dropped an atomic bomb nicknamed Little Boy 600 meters above the city behind me. At 8:15 a.m., just as families were heading to work and children were walking to school, the Enola Gay approached the city of Hiroshima. The bomb bay doors opened, and Little Boy, the atomic bomb, was released into morning sky. 600 meters above the city, the bomb detonated. In a single instant, a fireball materialized, burning hotter than the surface of the sun. 70,000 men, women, and children were killed instantly. Let that sink in. 70,000 human beings, completely erased from existence in less than 1 second. The city was primarily constructed of wood. It was entirely leveled by the firestorm that followed. Nearly every structure was destroyed. The peace dome somehow remained standing, a skeletal reminder of that terrible morning. This event drew a stark dividing line across humanity's timeline: the era before nuclear weapons and the era after. An additional 50,000 people would die over following 30 days from acute radiation syndrome. What terrifies me most is this: the bomb used in 1945 is laughably primitive compared to the weapons possessed by nuclear nations today. All of this destruction, the entire city of Hiroshima completely flattened, resulted from converting less than 1 gram of matter into energy. More than 100,000 people killed by a mass smaller than a butterfly. This was the reality of nuclear war nearly a century ago, and today's weapons are so significantly more powerful that it's almost incomprehensible that any human being, any rational leader, would even consider using them today. And yet, right now, as you sit there watching this video, the United States has 1,770 nuclear weapons deployed and ready to launch in as little as 60 seconds. Russia has 1,674. This is our reality. After researching how nuclear war would unfold for months, I now understand exactly how it would play out in 2024. And it absolutely terrifies me. Are you ready? Surveillance satellites orbit 1/10 of the way to the moon, locked in geosynchronous orbit, meaning they orbit at the same speed Earth rotates. This allows them to effectively hover above the same location on Earth continuously. These satellites can detect the hot rocket exhaust from launching ICBMs within a fraction of a second, even through dense cloud cover. They're so sensitive that they can detect a single match being lit from 200 miles away. The Spurs satellites positioned over North Korea, China, and Russia are approximately the size of a metro bus. They watch 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, constantly vigilant for the explosive spark of a nuclear launch. Assuming nuclear war escalates between the United States and Russia, here's what would likely happen. The moment either side launches a nuclear weapon, their detection systems immediately alert officials and prompt them to launch their own counteroffensive. It's a tragic strategy known as mutually assured destruction. If you nuke me, I'll nuke you, and we'll both perish together. If they determine the threat is genuine, ballistic missiles will launch from U.S. submarines positioned off the coast of Norway, beginning to strike key Russian targets within 10 minutes. A few minutes later, Russian submarines off the coast of Canada will have launched their own missiles, hitting the United States simultaneously. Once launched, ICBMs and submarine-based nuclear warheads cannot be recalled. Their fate is sealed the instant the button is pressed. ICBMs launch from both countries, arcing across the ocean, and beginning their strikes on military installations, command and control centers, nuclear launch facilities, and, tragically, population centers. It takes exactly 26 minutes and 40 seconds for an ICBM launch from Russia to reach the continental United States. This initial exchange of nuclear weapons, all occurring within less than 1 hour, will kill millions of human beings. But that's merely the beginning. Nuclear winter is coming. Black carbon smoke is thrust into the atmosphere from the nuclear firestorms. Modern cities, with populations hundreds of times larger than Hiroshima, will generate exponentially more smoke than what was experienced in Japan. Between 100 to 200 million tons of soot will be launched into the atmosphere. This black smoke ascends into the stratosphere, above the rain clouds that would typically wash it away. There, it gets heated by sunlight, lingering in the upper atmosphere for up to a decade. The stratospheric winds are so powerful that within mere days, this black smoke will encircle much of the northern hemisphere. The result? Earth will become freezing cold, even during summer months. Many locations across America will be more than 20 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than normal, with European and Asian regions cooling by twice that amount. This catastrophic climate change, combined with the economic collapse in nations struggling desperately to recover from the nuclear strikes, will result in massive worldwide famine and unprecedented loss of life. Over 5 billion human beings on Earth would starve to death. 99% of all people in the United States, Europe, Russia, and China would perish. This is a hypothetical model. Of course, the reality could be better or worse. But we should all agree that no scenario involving nuclear war will be acceptable. If visiting Hiroshima has taught me anything, it's that I genuinely don't believe humanity can survive another nuclear war. The destruction and devastation endured here is something beyond imagination. And as humanity's nuclear arsenal has grown exponentially since then, perhaps we've passed a critical tipping point. Perhaps it would take just one nuclear weapon being deployed to trigger a chain of events that would write the final chapter in humanity's story. That's a future I refuse to accept. But here's what terrifies me most. Something I discovered during my research that I need to share with you. We haven't just come close to nuclear war once or twice. We've danced on the edge of extinction more times than most people realize, and in ways that will make your blood run cold. September 26, 1983. A Soviet lieutenant colonel named Stanislav Petrov was on duty at a nuclear early warning facility outside Moscow. Suddenly, the alarm screamed to life. The computer system was showing 5, count them 5, ICBMs launched from the United States, heading directly for the Soviet Union. Protocol demanded he immediately report this to his superiors, who would launch a full-scale counterattack within minutes. But Petrov hesitated. Something didn't feel right. Why would the Americans only launch 5 missiles if they were starting a war? His gut told him it was a false alarm. Against all protocol, he reported it as a system malfunction rather than an attack. He was right. It was a glitch caused by sunlight reflecting off clouds. But if he had followed procedure, we wouldn't be here having this conversation right now. One man, one decision saved the world. That's not the only time. In 1995, Norway launched a weather research rocket. Russian radar operators mistook it for a submarine-launched nuclear missile. They activated their nuclear briefcase, the one that launches their entire arsenal. President Boris Yeltsin had just 4 minutes to decide whether to launch a full counterattack. At the last moment, they determined it was an attack. For minutes, that's how close we came. Standing in Hiroshima, I had the profound privilege of meeting with descendants of Hibakusha, the survivors of the atomic bombing. They shared with me stories passed down through generations, stories that textbooks can never fully capture. One woman told me about her grandmother, who was 9 years old when the bomb fell. She was at school, less than 2 kilometers from the hypocenter. In an instant, her world turned to fire and screaming. She survived by hiding under her desk as the building collapsed around her. For hours, she wandered through a landscape that looked like hell itself. People with their skin hanging off, crying for water, for their mothers, for death to take them. Children calling out names of parents who no longer existed. The river filled with bodies. The smell of burning flesh that would haunt her dreams for 70 years. But here's what struck me most. This woman, traumatized beyond comprehension, dedicated her entire life to one mission, ensuring it never happens again. She traveled the world, sharing her story, pleading with leaders, educating children. She passed away in 2019, and her final words to her family were, "Tell them, never let them forget, never let them do this again." I stood at the Peace Memorial, watching school children place folded paper cranes, symbols of peace and hope, hundreds of thousands of them, in every color imaginable, created by children from around the world. Each one represents a wish for a future without nuclear weapons. And I realized something profound. We are the first generation in human history with the power to completely erase our own species and every species on this planet. We didn't ask for this responsibility, but it's ours nonetheless. The question isn't whether we can prevent nuclear war. It's whether we will. The doomsday clock isn't controlled by fate or inevitability. It's controlled by human decisions. Every treaty signed, every weapon decommissioned, every diplomatic conversation that chooses dialogue over destruction, these move the clock backward. Every threat issued, every treaty abandoned, every arms race acceleration, these push us closer to midnight. Here's what gives me hope. Since 1986, the world has eliminated over 60,000 nuclear warheads, 60,000 weapons of apocalypse that no longer exist. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because ordinary people demanded it, because scientists who built these weapons looked at what they created and said, "Never again," because survivors like that grandmother in Hiroshima refused to let the world forget. The nuclear powers still maintain enough weapons to end civilization multiple times over, but the trajectory can change. South Africa voluntarily dismantled its entire nuclear program. The former Soviet republics of Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and Belarus gave up their nuclear weapons. It can be done. I'm not naive. I know the geopolitical complexities, the security concerns, the deep-rooted fears that drive nations to maintain these arsenals. But I also know that every single nuclear weapon that exists represents a chance, however small, that it could be used. And even one is too many. As I prepared to leave Hiroshima, I stood one final time before the Peace Memorial Museum. Inside, there's a stop clock, forever frozen at 8:15, the moment the bomb detonated. Beside it, a watch recovered from a victim, melted and twisted, also stopped at that exact moment. Time literally stopped for 70,000 people in a single instant. But time hasn't stopped for us. We still have 90 seconds. 90 seconds to change course. 90 seconds to choose diplomacy over destruction. 90 seconds to remember that behind every potential target, there are millions of people who want exactly what you want: to live, to love, to watch their children grow up, to see tomorrow's sunrise. The survivors of Hiroshima gave us a gift: living proof of what nuclear war actually means. Not abstract statistics or military strategy, but real human suffering on an incomprehensible scale. They showed us the future we must prevent. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let this be just another video you watch and forget. Talk about this. Share it. Make your voice heard. Demand that leaders choose a different path. Support organizations working toward nuclear disarmament. Teach the next generation why this matters. Because if there's one thing I learned standing at ground zero, it's this: the alternative to peace isn't just war, it's extinction. And that's not a hypothetical scenario or a distant possibility. It's 90 seconds away. If these are the tools our leaders choose to fight World War III with, humanity won't survive to see World War IV. But here's the beautiful, terrifying, empowering truth. That's a choice we still get to make. The clock is ticking. The question is, what are we going to do with our 90 seconds? I've shown you the destruction of the past and the potential annihilation of the future. Now it's up to all of us to ensure that somewhere between those 2 points, humanity finally chooses wisdom over warfare. The survivors of Hiroshima carried a message for 8 decades. Now it's our turn to carry it forward. Their nightmare must never become our reality. The clock is ticking, but it hasn't struck midnight yet. But I need to show you something else. Something that made this threat devastatingly real to me in a way that statistics never could. After leaving Hiroshima, I connected with a team of nuclear strategists and defense analysts who have access to classified simulation software, the same kind used by military planners. They agreed to run a scenario for me, one that models what would actually happen if a nuclear exchange occurred today between major powers. What I witnessed in that simulation room will haunt me forever. We started with a single trigger event, a regional conflict that spirals out of control. Within the first 18 minutes of the simulation, over 400 nuclear weapons had been launched. The map lit up like a deadly constellation, red dot appearing across Russia, the United States, Europe, and Asia. Each dot represented a city, a military base, a missile silo. Each dot represented hundreds of thousands of lives. The analyst running the simulation paused it at the 20-minute mark. "This is the point of no return," he said quietly. "Everything after this is inevitable." He looked at me with hollow eyes. "We've run this scenario hundreds of times, with different starting conditions, different political situations, different leaders making the decisions. It always ends the same way." He pressed play. By hour 2, every major city in the Northern Hemisphere was either destroyed or in flames. New York, London, Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo, Paris, Berlin, gone. The simulation calculated casualties in real time. The number climbed so fast I couldn't process it. 10 million, 50 million, 200 million. The numbers became meaningless, too large for the human mind to grasp. But then came the part that truly broke me. Everyone focuses on immediate blast zones, the analyst said, pulling up a new screen. But watch what happens to the rest of the world. The simulation showed the Southern Hemisphere, South America, Africa, Australia, Antarctica, places thousands of miles from any nuclear strike. As the nuclear winter set in, As the soot blocked out the sun, as global temperatures plummeted, these regions began to die too. "There's a 6-year-old girl in rural Kenya," he said, pointing to a random spot on the map. "She'll never see a nuclear explosion. She'll never hear the sirens. But within a year, she'll be starving to death because the crops fail worldwide." A farmer in Argentina, who has nothing to do with global politics, he'll watch his children waste away. A family in Indonesia, fishing communities in the Philippines, indigenous peoples in the Amazon. All of them, every single one, will pay the price for a war they didn't start, in a conflict they had no part in. That's when it hit me. Nuclear war isn't just a problem for nuclear powers. It's a death sentence for every human being on Earth. The moment those missiles launch, we're all casualties. Every single person reading this, watching this, regardless of where you live, your fate is sealed by decisions made by a handful of people in heavily guarded command centers. I spent the following weeks interviewing people who have dedicated their lives to understanding and preventing nuclear war. What they told me was both terrifying and enlightening. Dr. Sarah Chun, a former nuclear policy advisor, shared something chilling. "The scariest part isn't the technology, it's the psychology. We've had nuclear weapons for 80 years now. An entire generation of leaders has grown up never having witnessed their true horror. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are becoming abstract history, like ancient battles. The visceral fear that prevented their use during the Cold War is fading. That's when accidents happen. That's when unthinkable decisions become thinkable." A retired U.S. Air Force officer who spent 30 years in nuclear command and control told me, "I used to think the system was foolproof. Then I learned about all the times it almost failed. Computer glitches that showed false attacks, communication breakdowns during crises, human error, technical malfunctions, misinterpreted data. We've been incredibly lucky. But you can't run on luck forever. Eventually, luck runs out." Perhaps most haunting was my conversation with a former Russian submarine commander. "You want to know the truth?" he said. "The people who actually control these weapons, the ones who would have to turn the keys and press the buttons, most of us are terrified of them. We train for it, we drill for it, but we pray we never have to do it, because we know that the moment we receive that launch order, we're not just killing the enemy, we're killing everyone, including ourselves, including everyone we love. You can't win a nuclear war. You can only lose it in different ways." But there's a new development that's kept me awake for weeks since I learned about it. Artificial intelligence is now being integrated into nuclear command and control systems. Multiple nations are developing AI systems to help detect threats, make decisions faster, and respond to attacks in microseconds rather than minutes. On the surface, this sounds good: faster detection, quicker response, fewer human errors. But here's the nightmare scenario that experts are warning about. What happens when an AI system, designed to respond to threats with maximum speed, detects what it thinks is an incoming attack? Human beings can hesitate, can question, can say, "Wait, something doesn't feel right," like Stanislav Petrov did in 1983, explain to computer scientists working in defense systems. But AI doesn't have intuition. It doesn't have gut feelings. It follows its programming. If it's designed to respond to threats automatically, and it detects what it thinks is a threat, it responds. No hesitation. No second-guessing. No pulling back at the last second. We're potentially heading toward a future where the decision to end human civilization could be made not by a human being, but by an algorithm. A future where a software glitch, a misinterpreted data point, or a cyber attack spoofing an AI system could trigger nuclear war entirely by accident. Think about that. We're building machines that could decide our fate faster than we can comprehend what's happening. My last day in Hiroshima, I visited a school where they teach children about the bombing as part of their history curriculum. I sat in on a class of 10-year-olds who were learning about the hibakusha, about what happened to their city, about the importance of peace. After class, I asked some of the children what they thought about nuclear weapons. Their answers stunned me with their clarity. One boy said, "If adults are smart enough to build these weapons, why aren't they smart enough to get rid of them?" I didn't have a good answer for him. A girl told me, "My great-grandmother survived the bombing. She said the worst part wasn't the fear of dying. It was a fear that she'd watch humanity lose its soul. I don't want to live in a world where people think it's okay to do that again. Another child said something that's been echoing in my mind ever since. Nuclear weapons don't protect us. They just mean everyone has a gun pointed at everyone else's head. That's not safety. That's just waiting for someone to accidentally pull the trigger. Out of the mouths of children came a truth that global leaders seem unable to grasp. There is no scenario where nuclear weapons make us safer. They are not a deterrent to war. They are a guarantee of extinction if war happens. Here's the question I've been asking everyone I interview, and the question I want you to think about right now. What would you be willing to sacrifice to prevent nuclear war? Would you accept compromise in international disputes? Would you support diplomatic solutions, even when they're unpopular? Would you vote for leaders who prioritize nuclear disarmament over nuclear buildup? Would you be willing to live with less certainty, less guarantee of national security, in exchange for a world with fewer weapons of mass extinction? Because here's the brutal truth. We can't have it both ways. We can't maintain massive nuclear arsenals and expect never to use them. We can't keep weapons of total destruction on hair-trigger alert and expect that accidents will never happen. We can't pass these weapons down to future generations and trust that they'll be wiser than we are. Every day we maintain these arsenals, we're playing Russian roulette with the entire human species. And the gun is 13,000 chambers, one for each nuclear weapon that exists. We've been pulling the trigger for 80 years, and so far, we've been lucky. But probability doesn't care about luck. Eventually, there's a bullet in the chamber. Standing in Hiroshima, I realized something profound. We have two paths forward, and the one we choose will determine whether humanity has a future at all. The first path is fear. It's the path we've been walking since 1945. It says, we need these weapons because they need these weapons. We can't trust them to disarm, so we won't disarm. We'll keep building, keep improving, keep preparing for a war that would end everything. This path feels safe. It feels rational. It feels like strength. But this path leads to one inevitable destination. The moment when someone, somewhere for some reason, justified or not, decides to use them. And when that happens, everything ends. Not just for nations involved, but for everyone. Every dream, every hope, every person you love, every beautiful thing humanity has ever created. Gone in less time than it takes to watch a movie. The second path is wisdom. It's harder. It requires trust when trust seems impossible. It requires courage when courage means letting go of power. It says, these weapons don't make us strong. They make us vulnerable. The only way to win is to stop playing this game entirely. This path has been walked before. South Africa chose it. Kazakhstan chose it. Ukraine chose it. They gave up their nuclear weapons, and they still exist. They're still sovereign nations. The sky didn't fall. They found security not in the power to destroy, but in the courage to step back from the brink. On my last night in Hiroshima, I walked down to the river as the sun was setting. The same river where thousands of victims sought relief from their burns in 1945. The same river that ran red with blood and was choked with bodies. Today it's beautiful. The city has been rebuilt. Life has returned. Children play in the parks. Couples walk hand in hand along the riverbank. Cherry blossoms bloom every spring. The city survived, recovered, and rebuilt itself into something beautiful. But as I stood there, watching the water reflect the orange and pink sky, I couldn't help but think, if it happens again, there will be no rebuilding, no recovery, no second chances. The weapons we have now don't just destroy cities. They destroy the possibility of cities. They don't just kill millions. They kill the future itself. I came to Hiroshima looking for answers about nuclear war. What I found was a message passed down through generations of survivors, a message that transcends politics and nationality and ideology. The message is simple. This must never happen again. Not here, not anywhere, not ever. But that message comes with a responsibility. It's not enough to just hope it won't happen. It's not enough to trust that leaders will make the right decisions. We, all of us, have to actively prevent it. We have to demand it. We have to make it politically impossible for any leader to choose nuclear weapons over negotiation, destruction over diplomacy, annihilation over compromise. The survivors of Hiroshima kept this message alive for 80 years. Many of them are gone now. The last witnesses to nuclear war's true horror are leaving us. Soon, there will be no one left who remembers. No one who can look leaders in the eye and say, "I was there. I saw what it does." Never again. When they're gone, we become the witnesses. Their memories become our responsibility. Their warning becomes our mission. The doomsday clock stands at 90 seconds to midnight. 90 seconds. That's how long it takes to soft-boil an egg, to make a cup of coffee, to send a few text messages. That's all the time we have left to change course. But here's what I want you to understand. That clock can move backward. It has before. It can again. Every positive action, every diplomatic success, every weapon decommissioned, every treaty strengthened, these all push us back from the edge. We are not helpless. We are not powerless. The future is not fixed, but it requires something from us. Engagement, awareness, courage, the willingness to demand better from our leaders and from ourselves. I've shown you the horror of what happened 80 years ago. I've shown you the nightmare of what could happen tomorrow. Now I'm asking you, what are you going to do about it? Share the story. Talk about it. Make noise about it. Support organizations working toward nuclear disarmament. Vote for leaders who take this threat seriously. Teach the next generation why this matters. Don't let Hiroshima become just another history lesson. Make it a lesson we actually learn from. Because here's the final inescapable truth. If these are the tools our leaders choose to fight World War III with, humanity won't survive to see World War IV. But that's a choice, not a destiny. The clock is ticking. We have 90 seconds. Let's not waste them. This video was filmed in Hiroshima, Japan, with deep respect for the victims and survivors of the atomic bombing. Their story is not just history. It's a warning, and it's up to all of us to make sure that warning is heard.